recording and get everything set. So first, I will welcome everyone. I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Stacy Moyer, and I am the program manager for the paralegal program at Boston University. And with us is Joe Spada, who is the only video feed, so he's the non-blue box here. Joe is the program director for the paralegal program at BU.
It's in my contract that I'm on the video.
So I am going to, the whole webinar will probably take about 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up to Q&A, so we can stay on as long as you guys have questions. So probably, half hour, 40 minutes total. I'm just going to intro kind of BU here for you, a beautiful picture of our program and our campus. And just as a kind of general heads up, so we will be talking largely about the classroom program. So BU has an online and classroom program, but this focus will be largely on our classroom program. However, the content in the instructors are all the same as you will find in the online program. So information that you're hearing here will translate to an online course if that's what you're interested in. And of course, we can always answer questions about the online class as well. So just a little info about BU here. We are the fourth largest private universities in the United States. It founded in 1839. We've been ranked recently for our online work here, our online courses, and most notably by the Times Higher Education as a top university internationally. A little agenda today for what we'll be going over. Joe's going to talk about, give you an overview of the Paralegal Studies program, how it came to be, what does the curriculum look like, who teaches it. I will talk a little bit about registration, and then we will open it up to Q&A at the end. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand it over to Joe Spada, our program director.
Thanks, Stacy. Just as upfront, if you have questions and you're afraid you're not going to remember them, jot them down, because we really are here to answer your questions. I am the program director of the Paralegal Studies Certificate Program at Boston University, as Stacy mentioned. I've been teaching at BU since roughly 1995. I was an adjunct. At that time, I was in the paralegal program, but it was more of the ABA modeled 2-year program, and I think it was over $20,000. I was teaching in that program for about 5 years when we noticed our enrollments were declining. We weren't sure why, because the paralegal field was on the ascent. Long story short, we found out that there were these intensive programs, and we were very wary of it at first. We didn't want to do it. We didn't think it was going to fly in the marketplace. We were wrong. We did some research. They sent me out. I talked to hiring partners in large firms, in medium-sized firms, solo practitioners. I talked to in-house counsel at corporations and public sector as well. And pretty much what people said is they want a paralegal. They don't care how long the program is, but what they want in the paralegal program is to develop a nuts and bolts skill set, technology-driven, that their paralegals aren't going to be able to do everything the first day, but it won't be the first time. Their first day of work is not going to be the first time they see basic forms that the common paralegal is going to come in contact with. So with that in mind, BU asked me to redevelop the program, the curriculum, and I came up with this intensive program. We've been running it since 2000, and it's been very successful. Next slide. Did I just, yeah.
Because you didn't want to talk about yourself.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about myself.
Even though I put that slide up, and I know you don't want to.
Okay.
So yes, you talked to the program development.
Okay. Our program basically, so what I did when we developed it, and I didn't develop this by myself. BU had me put together a team consisted of other attorneys and actually some working paralegals as well. And this is what we came up with. The program runs for 14 weeks in September, in January, and in May. But this June, we're offering it, and we've done this before. Every June, we offer it for, I believe, 16 days with Sundays off. And it's our intensive. It's our boot camp, but they don't like me saying boot camp, so we call it accelerated. Personally, I think boot camp sums it up. Um, and we've done it before. We know it's a lot. We've made some modifications because it can't be the exact same program. I mean, when you think of it, when you take the September or the 14-week Saturday course, you're going to be working, you're going to have a week off in between each class, so you'll have time to do homework. You're really not going to have that in the 14 consecutive day, 16 consecutive day program. So what we do is I've come up with, and I've had my other teachers, instructors come up with sample answers so that you can go over them at your own leisure. You'll always have the sort of the assignment and the homework, but you also have a template of a sample answer that you can use to refresh your recollection of what we've gone over in class and to retest the concepts so you can see the forms filled in by yourself. We're going to do a lot of the work in class together. You know, you work for an hour, then we discuss it. Pretty much the way the class works is you come in, you get about a 20-minute to an hour lecture, depends on the day. Then we discuss the lecture, then you have an assignment, and you do the assignment, and then we go over the assignment. And then you have another lecture, then we discuss it, then you have an assignment, then we go over the assignment. So there's a lot of trying to include everybody in the process and making sure you all understand it. There are 7 modules, 7 subject matters, each taught by an attorney in their respective field. There is homework, it is graded. You must maintain a B- average to earn your certificate. I can promise you that that's not been a problem for us in the classroom. If you're interested online, it's a slightly different situation. Online is a little, it's not harder, but what we find is people tend to drop out online, or they just leave it to the last minute and then they're behind and they put forth a really unproductive product. So grades are a little more important online, you know, but if you're in front of us, I'm working with you. If you're showing up intelligently, physically, emotionally, you're not going to fall below a B-. You know, we work together and make sure that doesn't happen. Oh, and 1 absence is allowed. BU has a certain amount of criteria that in order to get your certificate, there has to be an in-seat requirement and hours in the classroom. So we have to make sure that the certificate is valid to the BU standards, and that's why we can allow 1 absence. Other than that, we help you make it up by offering, you know, whenever we offer it, you can make up more time if you miss more than 1 class. So here are our 7 modules. The legal research we're going to start with, and then legal technologies, writing, business, family, real estate, litigation. These are the 7 core principles to the practice of law, most of which will encompass other things like, you know, immigration law is going to be encompassed in legal research, and legal technologies is going to cover billing. I mean, we'll get into the actual individuals, but those are the 7 overall subject matters that when we asked attorneys what they were looking for in a paralegal, these were the consistent 7. So let me talk about legal research first. I teach legal research. I love legal research. It's a lot of fun. I like to utilize the legal research module to make sure everyone's sort of on the same program. That you know, we have a wide demographic here, not only in age, but in education and in job experience. And I need to sort of make sure everyone has a basic sort of paradigm understanding of the United States judicial system. So we take that opportunity to do that in legal research. I explained to you the 5 primary sources of law: statutory law, case law, constitutional law, you know, how they're similar, how they're distinct, who creates the different primary sources of law. We talk about the court hierarchical structure, the trial courts, the intermediate appellate courts, and the final appellate courts. We talk about the difference between what does a trial court do versus what does the Supreme Court do. And who trial courts basically determine the facts, and the intermediate and the final appellate courts determine the law, and we get into what that exactly means. In the legal research module, we'll talk about 2 different types of research: the traditional library searches, which are your reporters and your digests, you know, how you would research in a library. I think that's fundamental to understanding, you know, basic online research, basic legal research. But I will say extraordinarily few people are doing library searches now. almost all of it's done online. So yeah, we're definitely going to spend a lot of time online. Now, online searches are based on traditional library searches. If so, we'll explain what that all means. I only have a half hour, so I have to speed it up. Um, your online search, there's two basic search engines in legal research. One would be Westlaw, and the other would be LexisNexis. We just got the better contract with Westlaw. If you know one, you know the other. They're very similar. Your tuition includes all the books. The books are written by each instructor that will be teaching it. And it also includes your Westlaw password, your 1Pass number. So you will have, even if you take the intensive class, the consecutive day class, you'll have a valid Westlaw Next password for 14 weeks. And you'd be encouraged to play with it, use it, have fun with it, explore it. There should be a sense of fun to all this, a sense of adventure, a good part of learning. Westlaw Next is sort of extraordinary in what it can do and what it can pull up, but we have to understand how to guide our way through the software and how to best utilize the vast resource that it is. And all of these legal research in the classroom is going to be in a computer lab. Everyone's going to be in front of their own computer. So we will be doing the research together. We'll start the first one together, and then I'll give you, 15 minutes, and you try it, and then we go over that, and I go around to everybody. So there's a definite hands-on. We want you to understand how to use the software. We don't want you to go to a law firm and say, I've never done this, I've never seen this, I don't know how to get around. Will you be an expert in it? No one expects you to be an expert. Will you be able to get on and do the basics? Absolutely. That's our goal, and from there you can continue to learn. And we try to have fun with what we're researching. And we're done with legal research, we're going to technology.
Sorry. That was an accidental quick push button there.
Technology and the paralegal, again, this is going to be taught by Alex Hahn. He's our technological guru in the program. He put together this course. He, again, talked to a lot of the hiring division partners and managers, and technology was key. I mean, obviously it's key in everything, but it's amazing how many attorneys still are struggling with the technological aspects of the field. That's why this is a great thing to put on your resume, some of the practice that you'll explore with this. You're going to learn basic software, examples like CaseMap and LiveNote. They're different softwares that either help you manage the litigation process. It will help you manage billing. So if you know how to do billing and timekeeping and all that, I mean, that's a tremendous asset to go into it knowing. To go into a law firm and having exposure to all that. You're going to also learn how to file things online to court. It's called a PACER program. I don't believe it's in many states yet, but it's definitely utilized in the federal system. So it used to be a paralegal would actually go down to the court and timestamp all the documents that are going to be filed in a case. Now you can do that via online process called PACER. A software, but it's a lot more than attaching an email. Do you know what I mean? It's I don't want to say it's complicated, but you have to know how to utilize the software. So we've got the software. We're going to show you how to use it, how to code it, how to implement, how to send, how to pull out other documents that someone else sent. And that's a wonderful thing to be able to do, along with the latest cloud computing. What can go on the cloud? I mean, you have some privacy and some security issues when you put client information on the cloud. So we go over how to make sure everything's encrypted and encoded and protected. We also talk about e-discovery, which is a very, well, not very new, but I would say about 5 years now. E-discovery is also called electronic discovery. If you think about cell phones and tablets and all this information, that is now available that never existed before. So the metadata, and what that is if you're making a telephone call, the metadata will tell you where it was placed from and who it went to, or if you're sending an email, what computer was on and who was it forwarded to and who was it forwarded to after that. All this sort of metadata that we don't see in our everyday usage of this common software is filed and kept, and attorneys and clients cannot get rid of it. They have to archive it. So how do we discover that archival process and how do we utilize it in a law firm. And that's about all I know about technology and the paralegal. There's a reason Alex is teaching it. Legal writing and reasoning. I also teach this one. I love this one because to me, it's the opportunity for students to really learn how attorneys think, how they reason, how they analyze, and it allows us to elevate your professionalism in the office by how you verbally and writtenly respond. So there's two basic types of legal writing. One is called a case brief. Now, all attorneys write case briefs. In fact, law school, you learn the law by studying the various cases, and you write a case brief for every class. So, attorneys spend 3 years writing, hundreds of case briefs. And you have to know how to do this, sort of the introduction. And basically, you take a case opinion written by a judge and you deconstruct it into its various component parts. What are the facts of the case? What's the question of law that the case presents? If there's a question, there's an answer. What did the court decide? And then how did the court get that answer? What is their legal reasoning? What case law did they look at? What facts did they compare prior case law to the present situation? So we go over how to deconstruct, and I think we briefed 6 cases. You all have a good understanding of that. Then we take it up a notch further, and I teach you IRAC, the IRAC style of writing. IRAC is an acronym for issue, rule, application, conclusion. Attorneys know IRAC. They will know IRAC is an acronym. They will know if you say issue. They will know if you just use the word rule in a sentence or application. These words have very distinct meanings to attorneys. And I looked at a lot of paralegal courses, and not a lot of them offered IRAC. I wanted to put it in because while you may write an IRAC memorandum, I would say about 50% of paralegals do and 50% do not. It still behooves you to understand IRAC, because when you have a situation and you respond to it utilizing these words correctly, even if it's not a formal IRAC memorandum, you just elevate your sense of professionalism in the office. I mean, attorneys respond to any sort of IRAC analysis, and it's very applicable. Uh-oh. All right, I'll go to the next one. Real estate law, always fertile. In a good economy, everyone's selling and buying, and frankly, even when the real estate market tanked, what also tanked was the interest rate. So when interest rates tank, everyone refinances, or those who can afford to refinance. I shouldn't be so glib about it. We go over all the paperwork that a real estate attorney and paralegal are going to be faced with. I want you to see the forms. I want you to fill out the forms. What is an offer to purchase, sale? What does it mean by a good faith estimate? You see these, you're given hypothetical factual situations, and you're asked to draft the documents. Then there's standard forms that you'll be shown and you have to fill in. The module concludes with the filling out of a HUD settlement. No closing, residential or commercial, can close without a HUD settlement. Paralegals are very involved in HUDs. I hate them because I was bad at math and they have to balance to the penny. They are very detail oriented, but I got to say, I mean, paralegals in general have to be very detail oriented, and the HUD's a place where this really shows up. You'll also do title searches and find out what clear title means and how do you get it, how do you get rid of liens on land and parcels. And you will do title searches online. You'll see a lot of how people are doing title searches online now, which is in addition to understanding how they do them in a registry of deeds physically. But that's in keeping with us trying to keep the technological aspects up to date. Business law. We used to call this corporate law, but then my business law instructor told me she wanted to widen the scope to get more forms in that our standard paralegal in the corporate world is going to do. So that's what we did. Here you're going to learn a lot about what's happening on the corporate sector, mergers, acquisitions, what's due diligence, how do you as a paralegal proceed through a due diligence of a merger or acquisition, any of that stuff. You have to be aware of the secured transactions, the Uniform Commercial Code, Article 9, not all of Article 9, but those aspects that you're going to come in contact with on a day-to-day basis. How do you read meetings, board meetings, shareholders, directives, all that type of stuff. I mean, we will get a little bit into intellectual property, but copyrights and trademarks, very little in patent. If you're going to be a patent paralegal, you have to have a very specific background, engineering, something along those lines. It's not, it's great if you have it. It pays a lot of money, but it's not going to be your average paralegal. But you get a rough exposure to it. Probate and family law. Thank you, Stacy. Okay. Um, Again, a lot of bread and butter for a lot of paralegals and attorneys is the probate and family law division. To study family law is basically to study marriage and divorce. So we're going to go through all of that. What is, from a legal standpoint, what is marriage? How does it differ in state to state? Who gets to decide who's marriage? We will cover the sort of gay marriage, I wouldn't say debate, but what's happening in certain states and what's happening in other, and what the Supreme Court have to say about it when they struck down, I think it was Section 3 of DOMA. They didn't strike down all of DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. So you'll study that. What dictates child custody? What does a judge look at in making a child custody decision? Is that different in the state of Connecticut and in the state of California? Is there still alimony? What qualifies, what doesn't? Because a man get it. How do you divide assets in a divorce? But not only assets, how do you divide debt? If you have a net debt, who assumes that? Who's going to be responsible for it? So family law is going to cover all that. The probate side is going to make sure you understand what a valid will is, what happens when you die without a will, what are the intestacy laws, who writes intestacy laws, what forms will the paralegals see in creating a will, what's the intake information look like that'll help attorney decide, and who has to sign it, does it have to be notarized, what does an executor do, and what are the responsibilities, that are going to be entailed with that, along with estate planning like living wills, healthcare proxies, and powers of attorney. What's the difference between a power of attorney and a durable power of attorney? So those are your basics for the probate family law that they would be covering. And litigation. The study of law, or even not the study, the practice of law can really be divided into transactional and litigatory. So transactional would be like your business law, your real estate law, lots of forms, lots of detail. Paralegals fill them out. But when I say fill them out forms, I mean it requires an analytical skill set. It requires thinking. It's not just filling out paperwork. The flip side of that is litigation. And again, a lot of our paralegals are helping attorneys prepare for the litigation process. So we go through the whole scope of what it means to litigate an action. Average litigation is 5 years. It starts with a complaint. Paralegals help draft the complaint, so you have to know how do you draft a complaint, what do you include in it, what can you use, can you cut and paste from your last complaint? You'd be surprised, the answer is oftentimes yes, because a lot of these things are sort of basic, but you have to include everything, what has to be included in the complaint, all that. They talk a little bit about ethics, not my expertise. Federal Rules of Civil Procedure are going to guide the whole litigation process, so you have to be familiar with them. Once you file a complaint, what is an answer? Who has to answer? And the difference between a motion to dismiss and a summary judgment. What is discovery? What are the forms of discovery? Their interrogatories are written questions that are drafted by the paralegal and attorney and signed by the various parties under pains and penalties of law. And the depositions are oral. All right. Then we go through the actual trial process. What is the point of a trial? And when I say what's the point of a trial, I'm not being sarcastic. It's like, really ask yourself, what is the point of going to trial? And the answer is you need someone to determine what the facts of a situation are. Plaintiff has his or her belief in what the facts are. Defendant has his or her belief in what the facts are. And someone has to decide factually what happened. All right. And that's the point of going to trial. That's what a trial is all about. Who gets to decide that? The jury. The juries determine questions of fact. Judges are there, attorneys are there to help with the law and apply the law to the facts as the jury found them. And then you have an appeal. I love teaching law because there's so many exceptions. I can never really be wrong. It's just an exception. But for the most part, the appeal is if the trial court determines the facts, the appeal is an appeal of law. What you're going to be appealing is a ruling by the trial judge as a matter of law. Did the trial judge make an accurate decision? So that's what gets brought up on appeal, not the fact as determined by the jury. I think that's all 7.
That is all 7.
And I did it in 30 minutes.
You did it in less than 30 minutes. I can't.
Okay.
That was impressive. That was also a really interesting explanation of litigation.
Oh, good. Don't sound so surprised.
No, that made sense. That's interesting. Thank you, Joe. So I'm just going to wrap this up really quickly, just talking about the upcoming courses, how you register, and then opening it up to Q&A. So as Joe mentioned, our classroom program is held here in Boston 4 times a year. Our upcoming course date is in June, starts June 2nd. So that's our intensive class. So that's 14 days held over 2.5 weeks. So we meet Monday through Saturday. Then you have Sunday off. We meet again Monday through Saturday. You have Sunday off, and then we meet a Monday and a Tuesday, and then it's done. So yeah, really fast, and hence the name Accelerated and Joe's favorite boot camp. In addition to our summer intensive, we also have classes offered in September, January, and April. So the September class will be beginning the beginning of September. I believe it's September 7th. That's the Saturday, Joe. That's your Saturday.
Right.
Correct. Yes. So that starts. Yeah, that's the first Saturday after Labor Day, and then that runs through the beginning of December. And the Saturday after Thanksgiving is off. So there is an off day during that period. The cost of the program, as Joe mentioned, includes all the costs of the materials, your Westlaw Next password. It's $3,495. When you register for the course, payment is due at the time of registration. We register students on our secure site. I've got it listed here, and I'll have it on the next page as well as calling our office. You can register that way. Online program, as a comparison, runs 6 times a year, so it has a start date of every couple months. Our next online class is actually starting next week, but the registration is closed for that. The next online class that you can register for starts in July. I believe it's July 8th. And regarding for the classroom program, payment information, any kind of funding questions. This course is non-credit, non-degree program. So typical funding sources for credit programs don't apply to our certificate programs. However, there are private loan options that we've had a number of students look into and get. There's also information on our website about the Sallie Mae Smart Option Loan, which is, if you are approved for that, can give students up to $3,700 for a year, so that does cover the cost of the program. I am going to now open it up for Q&A. I've got my contact information here, so you can always send me an email, and if you have questions about content, the course itself, if I can't answer it, I can ask Joe and have him get back in touch with you. We have a link here to our website where you can find more information, and you can always call our office with the number there. So I'm going to just I'll open it up to Q&A. I think everyone has muted their own line. I've unmuted people, so if you want to unmute your lines and ask a question, you can also chat in the text box and ask that way. But yeah, any questions? No one.
Come on.
No one has a question about ABA, approved programs.
Money.
I have a question.
All
Sure.
right.
When does registration start for the June, and when does it end for the
So,
June intensive?
So the June registration is open, and it will close roughly a week before the class starts. So I'm looking at the last week of May as closing registration. So
Perfect.
yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Anyone else? Questions about
I don't know how to take this.
parking?
Hey, they did a really good job, and they all left.
Oh, Tamika, Tamika texted or chatted a question. She wants to know if she'd be able to transfer credit. So, Tamika, I assume you mean transferring this course to another program, which, because this program is non-credit, non-degree, it doesn't have 4 credits. It doesn't have transfer credits that you'd be able to apply to another program. So, unfortunately, no.
Any certificate program will have that, right?
No, and most likely, unless you were taking a paralegal program that was an associate's degree, right? That had credit associated with it, and those are the typical like 2-year programs. Then that most likely would have academic credit, but usually certificate programs would not. Some more people are chatting some questions, so we'll wait for those to come in.
I don't see those.
No, is your chat box not open?
Ugh, I got a chat box.
No. You do, if you, in your lower right-hand corner, Joe, the very far left button, it's a little
Oh, I see it.
screen. Yeah. If you click on that, then your chat box will open.
Well, thank you, Tamika. Can they speak it, or do they want us? Or
So I think people haven't unmuted themselves, and sometimes you can't. Sometimes it's not an easy process to, like, after you mute yourself, it becomes difficult to unmute yourself for some reason.
so either way, if you can speak it and unmute yourself, feel free. If you want to type it in, really, we are here to,
Yes.
make sure your questions are answered.
Aldo asked a question. After finishing the program, we would be able to obtain some help to contact potential employers. That's a good question. Joe, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, you can fill in if you think I left something out. Yes, what we do is we just added a component, a career seminar component. I think it's going to be in the technologies module, but I talk a little bit about it as well in legal research. What we do is we give you sort of a pamphlet of how to go about gathering the information that you need to put forth to continue your job search. What people are looking for, how to get on LinkedIn, how to make sure your LinkedIn is really up to date. Like, you can say, I'm a detail-oriented person, because we all know that's like a good buzzword to put on a cover letter, to put in a resume. But if your LinkedIn doesn't show detail, then it's just conclusory. It doesn't mean anything. Instead of telling someone you're detail-oriented, you should show them, evidence it by how well filled out your LinkedIn profile is. If you don't have a LinkedIn profile, you need to do one. If you have one that's not fully filled out, I'd rather have nothing there. Like, believe it or not, I think it's almost better to not have one. It needs to be filled out perfectly. Not perfectly, I'm sorry, but thoroughly. I would also suggest your URL should be put on, your LinkedIn URL should be put on your resume. So this is the type of thing that we'll go over with you, coach you, show you. And there's a lot of sort of inside tips and guides and who to contact and how to develop a network and all that stuff. And we do have, on occasion, people contact us with jobs. I think we have 3 open right now that we put on our board. Stacy, is that correct?
Right now, I think we have at least 4. Yes. So that's an ongoing ongoing process that we get internship and job postings that are constantly updated on our website that we direct students to. So the program itself doesn't have any direct placement for our students, but yes, throughout the program, as Joe said, there's certainly information about how to best go about looking for a job, how are you networking, how are you creating your resume, the types of things that you should be doing so that you are the most successful.
Right, and it's kind of like, teach you to fish instead of giving you the fish. Frankly, I would be very wary of any school that says they're going to place you, because that's just not what schools do. They don't do it. Karen's got a question.
Karen, yes. So Karen, I'm going to you had some trouble connecting, didn't get to see the whole presentation. I'm actually recording this, so I will be sending out the recorded webinar, so you can rewatch this, pause, fast forward, so that you can have that for your reference. And we usually host these webinars about 4 times a year, so before we have an upcoming class starting. So we'll have another webinar before our September class starts in August. So you can certainly always attend another webinar if you don't get the information from the recording. Aldo, you have another question. Any idea of the average salary, just to have an idea about it? Yeah, you don't have to be specific. Joe.
It's a great question. It's one that should be asked. Unfortunately, there's not a pat answer, but that's okay. We're paralegals or attorneys. We're going to learn how to think on multi-dimensions. Part of the answer is going to depend on geography, and certainly most of the answer is going to depend on how long you've been working. All right, so we just had an in-person open house about a week ago, and at that, Lonnie Morganelli is a working paralegal and associated with our PU program, and a student asked her, and I deferred that to her just because I wanted to make sure if as a paralegal, she sort of had the same information or the same belief that I did, and she was a little higher. I would have said starting salary right now in, say, a Boston area is like 38 to 42,000 a year, and she believes it would be closer to 45 to 50. Don't take any of our words for it. Go to career.com, go to salary.com, look at help wanted ads. The starting salaries are really all over the place. I will say this, you start low but go up quick, especially if you're willing to change jobs. Average paralegal working after 5 years is going to be closer to 70, 75, and after 10, with managerial experience, it can go over 6 figures. So it's definitely a career. It definitely builds with experience. Now, if you have a specific skill set, you may start higher. If you don't, then you may start lower. I mean, it's the average, so it really does depend. I would say take whatever job you get for your first job, because I'm pretty clear the first job will be your hardest. After that, paralegals are very much in demand. There's reasons for that. Lawyers, sort of very quickly in this sort of the last couple of years economic cycle, clients do not want to pay lawyers $350, $400 an hour to do something that really a paralegal can do for $100, $125 an hour. So the demand for paralegals, because it's much more economically efficient in terms of billing, is increasing, and it's easier to place paralegals than it is attorneys right now. So that's my take on it. I think you might start a little low depending on your past experience, but you can certainly go up relatively quickly.
That's a good question.
Anyone else? If it was a bad question, we wouldn't tell you either.
Yeah, any other questions? So as I said again, I'm going to be sending out this recorded webinar. My email is here. You can always email me any questions you have about either of our programs, online or classroom. Again, our June class starts June 2nd, so we'll be taking registrations for that through the end of May. I'll open up to Q&A one more time. Anyone has any last minute questions, But again, you can always call us, visit our website, and really thank you guys for your interest in our program, and thanks for attending. And I wish everyone luck in their paralegal interests. And Joe, any parting words of wisdom for all of us?
No, and it's a lot of money. I encourage you, if you have questions later on today or tomorrow, please get in contact because we will do our best to answer them.
Definitely. All right, great. Thanks everyone for attending, and we hope you all have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Terrific. I think
who's
that's
this?
Pam.
Yeah.
All right.